record. Go ahead, Jodi.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I just wanted to share about podcasting because I know that many people are podcast listeners, and as business owners, you're thinking, I really want to start a podcast. And so I think what I wanted to share with you today is that I think a lot of people are sitting on this, dream of starting a podcast or knowing that it has so much value, and they have some roadblocks to getting it going. And so I want to share the three things that I think I've seen the most with people that want to start a podcast but don't. And I am not a podcast or tech expert, but in my business, I was able to do it without being real tech savvy. And I would be happy to share it with you all what my process was. And there's three kinds of blocks that I want to help you overcome. And I'll give you some ways to do that. So the three blocks that I'm going to talk about here, that kind of the roadblocks to getting a podcast up and going, I think is the first one is mindset. And then the second one is the technology. And the third one is the consistency of showing up. Like I've seen people get one started and then really struggle to continue to show up and keep doing the podcast episodes. So let's start with the mindset.
So Jodi, do you mind if I interrupt just a second? Can you just tell the ladies too, for the women who are not familiar with you, who you are and what you do, because we really want them to go and listen as an example to your podcast as well.
Sure. Definitely. Yes. Yeah. I am a coach for moms with families who have extra challenges. And so as a mom of 4, I have kids on the autism spectrum and also with social and emotional mental health challenges. And we as a family were able to get through all of those struggles. And we are proud to say that we're successful, I guess, now with our kids in our 20s. They're success stories. They're able to manage their lives well. And as a family, we have healthy relationships. And so I have I also have a background in education. So I like to help moms with managing those relationships within their family and support their kids with these challenging behaviors. So my coaching practice is primarily just one-on-one coaching with moms. And then I do this weekly podcast where I talk about the topics that come up the most with solutions for them. So, and I've been doing that about a year now. So just celebrating my year anniversary with this endeavor. Okay. So, and you can find me at Good Mom Coach. That's my handle everywhere. Okay. So for those things, I just want to briefly say that your mindset, really honestly, if you have this, it's just like with anything with starting your business. If you have this innate kind of curiosity or desire about podcasting, and you are a podcast listener, then that's really all you need. You just need to trust that instinct that you want to try this out. And I would just also say that there's literally millions of podcasts out there right now, and everybody has their own unique voice and their unique message to share. And so even if you try it and then you realize, well, I really wanted to do that because my why was to get this message out, but then I found out the format wasn't aligned, what's the big deal? I say go for it, go give it a try, because that's how we really grow, is by trying new things and doing it. So just getting over that mindset piece first, that if you have the inkling to do it, trust that and go for it. The second thing is the technology. And as I said, I'm not super tech savvy, but I just was able to, by going through on my own and listening to Pat Flynn. Pat Flynn has free videos, and it's FLYNN. He's a fabulous marketer guy, and he's got so much great content. And you can go on YouTube and find his How to Start a Podcast series. And I did that and literally took notes and just step by step figured it out. And I will share just really briefly how to do that part, but also for people who just want to have someone take care of the technology for them, that's another option. And I have a really great resource for that as well. But I'll tell you what I did briefly with Pat Flynn's program, just so you have a sense of this is something you can do too. If I can do it, you can do it. How's that? So with Pat, he has a recommendation to use Buzzsprout. So when you go to Buzzsprout, it is a hosting site and it is so user friendly. You just literally set up an account that you want to start a podcast through Buzzsprout, and you, even as far as getting your podcast art set up through Canva and then uploading it to Buzzsprout and then using a program, whether you are on a PC or a Mac, there are free programs that you can use for recording, and you just go through this process. For myself, I used Audacity because I use a PC, and it's honestly a screen with a play button and at the top with a red dot, and you literally plug in a microphone that you can get on Amazon into your, you just have your USB, you plug it into I just plug it in right here. This is the microphone I use, and I hit the red record button and start talking. Honestly, that is as simple as it gets. Now, there are extra steps you can take for the editing. And again, Pat Flynn has those videos for you. So he will say step by step, you can watch the video. He will say, on this drop down menu, pull this down for if your sound sounds garbly or too loud, this is the drop down menu to use, and you can follow it through. And I say, if I could figure this out, then you can. Some people ask like some other, tech questions around like downloading the music for the intro and those kinds of things. And that is, you can take it to that level if you want, but there's a lot of people who do podcasts without doing a music intro, and their podcasts are wildly popular. So there's not, I think the other thing is going back to mindset for a minute. It doesn't have to be this perfectly produced and, professionally technical thing. Honestly, if you're a podcast listener, you know that there's a lot of podcasts out there that simply are talking about a really important topic, and they aren't fancy. They don't have fancy cover art. They don't have fancy, intros and outros or anything like that. So, but I did do an intro and an outro, and I did figure it out on my own. So I just followed those directions that Pat gave on the video. But the other option I want to give is Podcasting Business School is the handle on Instagram, and the person is Adam. I'm going to mess up his last name, but it's SCH. I want to say Adam. I'm sorry. I will have to put it in the notes afterwards, but Podcasting Business School on Instagram, and the person in charge of that is Adam. He has a podcast, and he has been so helpful for me in the after I produce my podcast. He gives you so much information about marketing your podcast and creating really valuable content for your podcast. And he's just a wonderful resource. And so I can't recommend him even, I just can't recommend him enough if you want to go that route where you want somebody to just take care of the technology for you and help you with that. You can hire him to do that. And also, full transparency, I do think that I will receive something in by referring. I don't know what it is, but just transparency there. I really have appreciated his information. So I wanted to give that option as well. And then the third thing around the consistency piece, I wanted to share you what worked for me to be able to do my podcast 52 weeks, because I am not a person who is honestly, consistency is not my strength, not at all. And this is the one kind of thing in my life that I did every single Thursday for the last 52 weeks that I am still kind of shocked about. So, but I'll share kind of how I did it. The mindset that I had about being consistent with my podcast, there were two things that I think helped me to do that and to show up consistently. And the first one was, I imagined when I was doing my podcast that there was one mom who found my podcast and listened to it and found it to help her with her situation. And that when I told her that this podcast would come out every Thursday, I imagined her thinking that Thursday was a day that she could count on to get help. And that if I established that trust with her, that was really important. I wanted to be there for her no matter what. And so there are podcast episodes that I will tell you that they weren't my like A game podcast, but I was sick one time. I was on vacation one time. Didn't have good internet, but I still just tried to think that there was a mom out there who was counting on hearing from me. And if it was just one mom, it was important to me to show up for her. And the other thing I think that helped me be consistent is that I wasn't worried about perfectionism. And I was willing to just think of my podcast as a conversation where I was sharing some information that I thought was helpful with even just one person. And if I wasn't caught up in the perfectionism, then I could just hop on the mic and say, I want to talk about this topic this week. And sometimes it was a personal topic at the time that I was going through, and sometimes it was more of a general topic of information I thought would be helpful. But I kept my podcast episodes around 15 minutes average. Some of them are 10, some of them are 20. But I mean, anybody can talk to somebody for 15 minutes about something. I mean, that was my mindset. Like I can talk about, there's so many things to talk about as a mom who has kids struggling, that if you know your topic really well, then you have more than enough. I mean, you can make a list right now. If you wanted to right now, you could probably make a list of 52 topics that you could talk about. Right. So that was how I did it. That was my, my process and the resources that I used and the mindset that helped me through it. And I hope that gives you just, I guess, the motivation or the inspiration that you can do it too. And I wanted to offer, I've helped 3 different people by having just an hour, or I think even less than that, where we just sat down and I showed them the actual links and the videos and the things that I did. And I just kind of brainstormed through them, like, how do you want to set a date to get started? And if you just map out 2 weeks, literally, I can help anybody who would like to do this. I'm happy to sit down with you and schedule a time. But if you map out a 2-week window where you want to set your launch date and you want to watch your videos to get started and you want to record 3 episodes to be ready to launch, I can show you how to do that. Set up your Buzzsprout, go to Canva, do your cover art. There's some guidelines to get on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and some of the other platforms. And it's all taken care of for you in Buzzsprout, but I can still walk you through and do that. And I've done that with a couple of people, and I'm happy to help people with that if that's an interest that you have for podcasting.
So Jodi, you have just taken all a lot of the fear about that, because you think of podcasting as such a big endeavor. I do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've done filming and stuff, but for some reason, podcasting seems a little bit more scary to me, just because it seems like you have to have an outline, and you got to have this cover art and put the intro and the outro together and all that kind of good stuff. So thank you for making it a little, simplified, because I like that, just to try to get out there and do that. So, and I know with your system, so you are not, because some people do go live. So can you use these systems, like if you were to record over like StreamYard, so you have video and audio, and take the audio and put it into one of these formats?
Yes, a lot of people are doing that. A lot of people are using different formats, whether they're doing their podcast and then they're putting recording their podcast on Zoom and then putting it on YouTube. The technology is so advanced now that there's so many ways that you can have multiple ways of sharing your content. And so I haven't actually taken advantage of that yet. Mm-hmm. I have thought about it, but I haven't gotten to that point. But yes, that's something that Adam, that he can talk about that too and help with that. Also Pat Flynn, I'm sure, but I haven't done that much yet. I just have done my podcast through, just my audio only. And
Yes.
the other thing about that's kind of nice is that you don't have to do hair and makeup. You can come on and do your podcast and no one knows. You can just do the podcasting, but
well, I think you said, some really important things too. It's about having a conversation with your audience.
yeah.
And I think that is the beauty of podcasting versus sometimes on video, because video, sometimes you're just doing an interview with that person, but really when you're doing that podcast, you're really chatting with the audience.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. And so the other thing that I really wanted to point out that I think is just really spectacular. Well, congratulations, first of all, on going live with your podcast 52 weeks. That is huge. So
I know. I still am kind of like shaking my head at myself that I did that, but I'm going to keep going.
But I think the key in that, and this is one of the things too that I have taught about going live on video, is create a show. It makes you show up. If you call it something, and if you tell people, and that's what we do in our accountability society too, is if you tell somebody, then you're like, they're expecting me to show up.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I got to do this.
Yes.
So it's just that little piece to keep us moving forward. So thank you for sharing that. I really like that. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you was, do you do show notes? So when you put it out there, do you have show notes, or how is that done? Or do you just not do it? Or what's your thought on that?
Yes, I do. I do show notes. I also can just share briefly that my process for to record each episode is I have a list of topics, and then I add to it as I think, oh, that might be a good podcast episode. So I have that always available to me. And then I record my podcast pretty much in real time. So a lot of people pre-record several episodes, and they'll like record all, for one day. They'll record 6 or 7 episodes on different topics, and then they'll just schedule them out, but I do them basically in real time. And so for me, when I say real time, sometimes I'll record it a couple days before it publishes, but they're pretty much, one at a time. And I think there's advantages to both, either or with that. But for me, I do my topic, and then I don't do a scripted podcast. I do a topic with kind of like I did today. I give you 3 points that I think are related to the topic that are most helpful. And then I have in my mind what I want, the most important thing that I want people to walk away with from at the end. And then I wasn't good at the beginning of having a call to action, but Adam taught me that a call to action is as important, like give the listener something to do, right? So then now I have my call to action is, how can you try this concept out this week with your daughter or son, or something, personal, or download this free How to Divert a Meltdown resource that I talked about meltdowns today. This resource is on my website, and I'll give them that call to action, right?
Yes.
And so to answer your question about show notes, when I have that outline that I'm talking from when I record, it's pretty much my show notes in summary form. It's in bullet form that I'm talking from, but then when I go to publish, I upload what I just recorded in Audacity into Buzzsprout, and then it opens up it's so user friendly. It will say, I guess description. It'll say description of this podcast, number and description, and then I just type it in right then. When I'm going to publish, I just look at my show note or my notes for my episode, and I just put a very short summary. Some people do quite extensive show notes, but for me, I just summarize it. So it's basically the notes that I just worked from when I recorded, and I put it in sentence form, and then it's easy and good to go. And that's my rhythm and my pattern.
So, and it sounds like too, those, your notes there too could also be used for a post as you're promoting it other places. So you're already all set.
I just copy paste. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Trying to streamline it makes it. So a question for you, and I'll let the other ladies too, if they have questions. So you said you record in Audacity. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then you take it and you put it into
Buzzsprout.
Okay. So it's a 2-step process there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Buzzsprout, that gets it out onto Apple Podcasts and everything?
Yes.
Okay. So that's kind of the platform that you're, okay. So one's recording and one is the platform that gets it out to the world.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Awesome. Very cool. So, and I like that too, those, when you have 3 key points, you know, I've learned that too, where you, if you have those 3 points, that pretty much takes you, that's about 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Excellent. So Lori or Jackie, do you have any questions at all for Jodi? Have either of you thought of doing a podcast?
No, I think this is great, Jodi. I appreciate you sharing. And at some point, you know, sitting down and like talking to you about it, like I'm like a hands-on, like visual, like if I like actually get to click the things and see the things.
Yeah.
I love that you offer that, because telling me is cool and I can kind of like visualize going from here, record this, download here, but until I like see what you're talking about, like it doesn't click for me, and it's still the overwhelming, like you talked about in the beginning. It's still the mindset of like, oh, this is hard. Like this is all sounds too complicated.
Right.
And so, and Karen, I have thought about doing one, and more like the format of like interviewing people, like bringing interviewing people and Zoom and making that onto YouTube and a podcast. And I've had some friends who do it that format, and they pay somebody to do all the other stuff. Like they just record the Zoom and they're like, here, go do this for like a couple $100 a month to like, you know, whatever, that stuff. So it would be nice to see like how to do it manually, and then also like, do I want to hand this off? So, but yeah, thank you for sharing. That was a great presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, really great. And just to see what you have done over this, you know, this last year is truly amazing, you know, just to, and your confidence in now presenting as well.
Right, right. That's the other thing that happens. I think if you listen to your podcast, everybody has to be okay with kind of like being terrible at the beginning. You just, you know, you have to realize that when you think about, I like to think about toddlers learning to walk. They fall down all over the place. They're just, you know, they're a mess. They fall down over and over again. And we have to remember that we have to fall. You have to learn something new. You have to fall down at the beginning and not be good. And so my first few episodes, I think, were pretty clunky, and I definitely, you know, wasn't as natural and like you said, but over time, if you do something over and over and over, you are just naturally going to get better, right? So.
Yes, excellent. Wow. So Lori, do you have any questions?
No, I just wanted to listen because I would like to start interviewing people in my samurai community. I reached out to a woman. It was really exciting. I saw her video and she was fabulous. I didn't know who she was. And so I just asked for a friend request and she did that. And then I asked her to join the community. And I asked her, I said, would you contribute every week? And she has been. Her videos are beautiful. They teach language and culture, and she travels, and she's not getting very many views. Well, I said, well, I'm going to help you, and you can post here every week and I'll introduce you to other people. I want to, you know, to interview her. And there's so many interesting people in our community that have so much knowledge about many things. And that's what I want to do that eventually. I'm not sure exactly when, but that's been on my mind to do.
Yeah.
And I have no problem speaking.
Yes, I know, Lori.
The technical part is like, oh.
Yes, that's a good thing about podcasting. There's a lot of people out there that can run all the tech stuff for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Also, I'll say that the interviewing, I have done a few of those now, and those are very popular. As far as my views, Buzzsprout will also show you your data. It does all of that for you. So it'll show you how many downloads you have, what your growth has been over time. And the ones where I have done interviews have very high views.
Oh, really?
So,
okay.
Yeah. So interviews are very
even just audio?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think right now podcasting gets more views than video stuff does.
Really?
Yeah, because it gets out there a little bit. It's on a whole different channel.
People can just pop in their headphones while they're cleaning their kitchen or walking, or like for some people, the audio only is just a very convenient, it takes away one less thing where you're actually watching and getting information from it. So. Yeah.
All right, Jodi, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I really
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
it, and I appreciate the offer to help the women in our community start and kind of understand what it takes to start a podcast.
Yes.
So I bet you get some of those too, where you trip on your words when you're going
Oh,
live.
for sure. For sure.
And just laughing at that. So I'm excited to see what everybody's going to be doing here in the new year as well. So I'm going to hit stop recording.